Hey, everybody. I hope you're doing well. I'm super excited to be sharing with you one of my favorite people. Colby and I have been spending a lot of time together recently, and I've gotten to know him. Colby is a career strategist and he is a job search expert. He helps job seekers figure out how to navigate this crazy job market that we're in right now, right? It's kind of insane. But he is the founder of Job Hunter. He has spent over a decade coaching job seekers on how to craft compelling resumes, build strategic networks, and master the art of the interview. Today, specifically, we're going to be talking about negotiations, which is, of course, one of those things that most people have a little bit of an aversion to. And so I'm just so thrilled that we get to have this conversation. Colby, you and I, we love chatting, don't we?
We do. We do.
We do. We
Oh,
do.
Lindsay,
So, yeah, I would love for
yeah.
you to give a little introduction to yourself as well and share with our audience here how you got into this.
My journey really started back in my very first job out of college. I was doing help desk support for a financial services firm, and I was stoked. Wasn't unemployed, was making more money than I ever had before, all of $34,000 a year. Was paying my way. My parents weren't my roommates. Life was good. And I went in there saying, I'm gonna work super hard because I want to make more money. I want to get a title bump. I really want to set my career on fire. So that's what I did. Overtime, nights, weekends, taking all the grunt work, saying yes to everything.
Mm.
And by the time that first interview come around, I was like, all right, this is in the bag. I got this. I'm excited for that $1.50 raise. And I go in there and I get the dreaded meets expectations.
Yeah.
And it was a real gut punch. It was a real reality check. And I'm glad I got it this early. I'm glad that my hard work was not recognized. And what I
Mm.
realized in that moment was I needed to be really strategic with how I looked at my career.
Mm.
And using my education in economics, consumer behavior, behavioral economics, I realized that people don't value work, they value personal impact. And that's when I
Mm.
started to kind of do some self-reflection and research on how do I not simply just do a good job, but make sure that it's influencing and impacting the right people.
Yeah.
And that's where the light bulb came off. And then through there and understanding how do I impact my boss? How do I impact C-level? How do I impact our users? By not simply just resetting a password or running that cable underneath a bunch of desks, but the higher need for it, was able to accelerate my career, get more opportunities, and ultimately become the head of North American operations for a large software development firm. Um, and then I woke up one day and realized that I was working on projects I didn't care about with people I could not stand, making people I never met a bunch of money. And I said, okay, something needs to change. And I realized that my approach to this in ultimately stop being a job doer and being a problem solver was not common sense. And so packaged it
Mm.
up, formalized it, and launched my coaching consultancy. Um, that was over 12 years ago now, went full time 10 years ago, 3,500 people hired, promoted, and paid since then. And I'm excited to be here today with you.
Ooh, that just gave me goosebumps. Like the impact, the ripple effect that you have there in helping people to really own their career and the trajectory of their career and take the responsibility for what it is that they can control.
Hmm.
I mean, so powerful, so powerful. So
I
excited to
think
have you here.
yeah, and I think that's the big thing here is like I think a lot of us have careers kind of on accident.
Yeah.
You get the job, you get recognized, you apply, maybe it works, and it just is this it's this reactionary process.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're old and you look back and you're like, what the hell happened? And so
Yeah.
it's my job to help my clients as early as possible take that control and that ownership so they don't end up somewhere they definitely don't want to be.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you for joining us today. This is going to be a great conversation around a topic that's super uncomfortable for many
Mm.
people. Back when I was in corporate America, I actually had the opportunity to build an entire negotiation program for women.
Mm.
So I love this topic. I think this is something that not enough people talk about money
Hmm.
and the importance of money and the importance of what you bring to the table in order to receive money, right? And that exchange. And so, yeah, this is going to be a good chat. So, to kind of kick us off here, I want you to tell me, when you think about negotiations and the most important thing that people have to be knowing about negotiations when they are going into interview for a job for the first time, or even if they're going in and maybe looking to renegotiate, they're
Hmm.
already inside of a company and renegotiate and accelerate their career. What would you say is the most important thing that they need to be thinking about?
It's ensuring that you're relieving enough pain where the pain of you leaving is unbearable.
Mm, yeah.
Because this is going back to the consumer behavior part, right? We don't buy something primarily for what the thing is. We buy it for the thing it does for us. And we are, as human beings, as survivalists, we are more motivated by removing pain than accentuating joy. And
Yeah.
so if you can understand your audience, your next boss, your current boss, the powers that be who are going to make this decision and understand what is their real pain points and frustrations and how am I helping to alleviate those by leveraging my own expertise, experience, and passions,
Mhm.
then you start to give yourself more leverage. Um, and so again, looking at work not as work, but as a problem solving, pain relieving endeavor, a lot gives you the leverage to say, here's how much pain I've relieved. This is how much I think it's worth.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing. So, how does somebody do that in practicality? Like, what does somebody need to do in order to get prepared for that? Because it sounds, you know, in a way, somewhat obvious, right?
Mhm.
We got to relieve the pain. But I think that people get really hung up in how do I do that? How do I do
Yeah,
that effectively, especially when it comes to money? So,
yeah.
let's walk through maybe an example here where let's start with somebody who's coming to the table for the first time. They're in the job searching market. They're really excited about an opportunity.
Mhm.
Maybe it's early on in their career, so they haven't had a lot of experience with going in and negotiating. What does that look like for them?
So, there's 2 buckets of impact any person can make on an employer. The first one, which we're most used to, is the business bucket. How are you driving profits? How are you reducing costs? How are you speeding up times? And how are you limiting future risk, right? If your work isn't contributing one of those 4 buckets, then why are you there, right?
Mm,
So
yeah.
that's one part of it. I'll come back to that. The other part of it, which I think is not really talked about enough, is the human impact.
Mm,
How are you relieving pain? How are you freeing up time for that person? How are you allowing them to think strategically without being in the weeds? How do you get them excited about their doing their job again?
mm,
And I think it's a balance between the two. And I think ultimately, especially those who are starting off, you need to ask. There's not any research, there's
yeah.
not a database. ChatGPT can't help you. So as you go into your conversations, whether they're informational interviews, whether there are, interviews with HR screeners or anyway all the way up to hiring managers to C-suite executives, ask, "Hey, how
Mm,
do you expect this position to impact these metrics?
mm,
What are you hoping the next person in this role is going to make your life easier in what ways?" Be direct and ask because it's definitely not going to be on the job description and they're not going to come out with it outright. And so simply
yeah.
being bold to ask and then allowing the conversation to say, oh, interesting. Why do you want this position to help grow revenue X%? Why now? What hasn't worked before? What do you hope is going to work in the future? Just getting super curious is then
Mm,
going to show the decision maker that this person means business. And then as we continue to talk today, it'll help drive your value up so that you can ask for more because you're delivering more on the outset.
yeah. Amazing. In those instances, are you seeing right now in today's job market that many of these positions do already have salary bands that are associated with them so that the candidate is going into these initial conversations with some clarity? Or are you
Mhm.
finding that, that's still a little bit vague and so people are having a harder time navigating that space?
So luckily now more and more states are adopting pay transparency initiatives, which I love because it really does bring up more balance of power, not total balance of power, but definitely more in the side of the candidate. So at least you know what you're working with. You understand that bracket. Um, I'm always for like not saying a number first because then you anchor yourself. But at least if you know the range, it's really helpful. And then obviously it's your goal to understand how much value do I need to bring in order to get myself to the very, very top of that bracket.
Mhm. If you don't come in at the top of that bracket, how hard is it going to be to push yourself up along the way? I think that one of,
Yeah.
at least the old school mentality for some people, women and minorities especially,
Mhm.
is that mindset of like, I've got to get in there, prove my worth to you. Once I prove my worth, then it's okay for
Mhm.
me to ask for more, when we know that it's actually the opposite, right? You have to,
Yes.
sell your worth on the front end, get as much as you possibly can because it's harder to move the needle
Mhm.
once you're inside
That's
an,
right.
an organization. What do you say about that?
I mean, it's all about, and I think you kind of alluded to it before, like the uncomfortableness around this. this conversation
Yeah.
is that we think we have to go in there and hard sell.
Mm,
We think we have to be the used car and the used car salesperson at the same time.
yeah.
But really, it's about, again, you can give yourself better leverage by understanding how you're going to add value, right? That's really it. And so the proving of it all, I think that goes back to the thing that I was a victim of the assumption of my clients are like, I'll just work harder and then I'll get rewarded. Doesn't, you need to toot your own horn. You need to put yourself out there. And the best time to do that is in the interview so that you have a baseline to go off of moving forward. Because unfortunately, employers, they do settle into this assumption of um, almost taking you for granted,
Mm,
right? You're there, you show up, you do great work. It's like, okay, cool. And then they move on to the bigger fires.
yeah.
And so you have to go in and say, I'm going to bring so much relief. I'm going to deliver even more joy. I'm going to move these metrics in the right ways that you need to keep me happy because you know about the value I'm going to continue to deliver.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, part of your own personal story with like the meets expectations, right? I've had some of those conversations as well and would be breaking my back inside of a corporation and believing and providing a lot of the proof, right?
Mhm.
If we take that ownership of our own career, we should be creating that like brag book behind the scenes
Mhm.
of here are all of the things that I am doing that nobody's asking me to eventually provide so that I have that ammunition, right? But the thing that I was told was like meets expectations means you're doing the job. And
Mhm.
so like it's almost impossible for you to get anything above that, which is then going to drive those future increases a little bit easier. So I think it's, having that mindset of okay, I've got to be able to come in at a rate and then continue to accumulate all of that ammunition along the
Mhm.
way
Yeah,
is so
exactly.
important. Yeah. You also said something that I think is a really important thing for us to touch back on here, which is the mindset piece, right? Part of this negotiation is the belief that you have yourself and the way that
Mhm.
you're thinking about going into this negotiation, right? If you are allowing, and you and I have had this conversation before, and many of the listeners know that I'm a big believer in the whole cognitive behavioral therapy
Mhm.
model of thoughts, feelings, actions, results, right? If you're going into a negotiation and your mind is like, this is going to be horrible,
Mhm.
or I'm going to get taken advantage of, or I'm not going to be paid what I'm worth. The way that you feel about yourself and about that situation is going to cause you to show up in a way that's maybe shaky
Mhm.
or, not as assertive or not as clear with your delivery. So I think that that was an important piece that you kind of like flew by a little bit that I
Yeah,
wanted to
let's
bring
talk,
back.
yeah, let's double down on that then. So I think it's not a negotiation. It is saying, do we agree on value add and value ask,
Yeah. Love
right? Like, and it's your job as a candidate to maximize your value added so that you can maximize your value ask.
yeah.
Not to dehumanize anybody out there, right? But your next employer,
Yeah.
heck, your current one, is seeing you as an asset,
Sure.
as if they were seeing a copy machine or a warehouse or a forklift or more capital goods, right? Does our investment in this asset provide us a positive ROI?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And ultimately, your features there are your experience, expertise, and skill sets. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's your job to say, this is how I can convert who I am and what I do into positive ROI for you. And to
Mm-hmm.
do that so much that then you give yourself leverage and that everybody agrees on the same number,
Mm-hmm.
right? That you feel like, hey, I am going to deliver this value and more. And they're going to come back and say, yes, we agree. And we know you're going to, we know that we're still getting a steal because what we talked about, what I know you can bring, is going to have that much more ROI.
Yeah.
And so it is not this holding anybody over a barrel. You mentioned taking advantage of, right? Like, and I would say that people aren't taken advantage of in the negotiation process. They just haven't done a good enough job articulating their impact.
Mm. Mhm.
I'm only going to pay you what I think you're worth. What are the impact I think you're going to make? That's no judgment on you. It's how you've communicated, how I understand what
Yeah.
this dynamic is going to look like.
Yeah. Interesting. I've never thought about it that way. I've always thought about it in the sense of like, it's the company's job to get the best price
Mhm.
for what it is that they're paying for. And they're always going to lowball you. Because if you say yes to it, then they've done an amazing job at getting that asset for the cheapest
Hmm.
cost possible. So,
Yeah.
like, it's their job to lowball you. It's
Yeah.
your job to come in, communicate that value so clearly, and also believe in your worth
Hmm.
so that you don't just take the first thing.
Yeah. And I think expect because the balance of power tends to be in the side of the employer, right? That we people tend to take that first thing.
Yeah,
Don't look a
I've
gift
done it.
horse in the mouth, right? Like
I've
that
done
is,
it. Yeah,
yeah, we've all done it, right? And
yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's a it's a reminder, and I would say the people that do that ultimately are not only uh, less prosperous financially, but also less engaged
Mm,
because they know they're putting in more effort than what they're being valued at. So it's almost like the quiet quitting, right? That we
yeah,
heard about. It's like I'm only going to do as much work as you're paying me to do,
right,
and so
right.
everybody loses.
Everybody loses.
Which is why, again, like I think it is this. It's an understanding of value. It's not a negotiation,
Hmm.
and I think that understanding has to come first contact.
Hmm.
Where people make the mistake is that they wait to talk about these things until the offer letter is slid across the table. And the candidate thinks one of two things. Either I need to take this because it's here and it may not be here tomorrow. Or I got these people over a barrel. They want me and I'm going to take them for all they're worth. And I
Mm,
don't think either mindset is good. Your job is to from the initial conversation, from your resume, from your LinkedIn profile, you're saying, here's my expertise. Here's how I apply that expertise to solve problems that you may also be suffering from. Here are the tangible and intangible impacts I've had in delivering those solutions.
mm,
And then you use that to go through the process to continue to uncover problems and to provide solutions so that at the end it's not about I lose, you lose, I win in the negotiation. It's like this is based on these problems, based on the amount of money you want to save, based on how quick you want to do this. I think I can bring in X amount of hundreds of thousands of dollars in extra value, and I think that's worth an extra 10 to 20% on the offer that you've given me.
mm-hmm. Yeah. What are some of the best places for, I think that my brain goes, that conversation feels so much easier after you've had years of expertise and like
Hmm.
really know where that value comes from. If you're just coming out of college
Yeah.
or maybe you're in your early career, are there some places? I mean, obviously you can go to like salary.com, right?
Hmm.
And look up some of the salary bands and understand it that way. But how does somebody earlier in their career get some of that knowledge?
It is as complicated and as simple as asking.
Yeah.
So one exercise I love taking my clients through because we ultimately, where I think we tend to devalue ourselves in our expertise because expertise, once acquired, looks and feels easy.
Mm, yeah.
And the second it looks and feels easy, the second we start to devalue it. And so it's
So
not a
true.
lack of skill set, it's not a lack of expertise, it's a lack of perspective on it.
Yeah.
And so what I challenge my clients to do is to go out and to go to the professionals, the people, the friends and the family around them and ask them this very simple and direct question. How have I been able to help you?
Mm,
I love this question because it's very direct. You're asking one person and it's so open ended that you're allowing that person to take the question exactly where they want to go.
mm,
And with that, you're reminded of the ways that you're impacting, right? And I think, and by knowing that, you can then transpose, okay, if I'm really good at something as simple as organizing spring break trips with 15
mhm,
friends,
mhm,
okay, that means I know logistics. I can run a spreadsheet. Like I'm good at, I know how to do research to get a good deal. I'm able to like secure the party boat or what have you. It's like, okay, there's some things there. And maybe you can then
yeah.
apply that to a company. And then also saying, what problems have I encountered in doing some of this work that a company at large might also be that I could help them with?
Yeah.
And I think that approach, even if you feel like you have zero experience, which is a lie, life experience is important. Classroom experience is also counts.
Absolutely.
You
Yeah.
just don't have you just lack the perspective.
Yeah.
And so go get perspective and then do some mental math about, well, okay, if I can solve this problem, who's suffering from it? How do I quantify that suffering? And how do I connect with them so that I can tell them, hey, I can be your pain relief?
Yeah. Love that. Love that. I want to switch gears a little bit here as we're kind of coming towards the end of our time together. We tend to think about money as being the primary thing that we're negotiating. But what are some of the other things that you're seeing, especially today, that people are negotiating as part of their
Mm,
entire package? How
yeah.
how are you helping your clients to see the bigger picture of
Mhm.
what is possible?
Yeah, I think it's a great point that hard dollars are not the only things you can negotiate with. So things like benefit contributions, whether that is healthcare, whether that is vision, whether that is retirement 401k, those are all absolutely negotiable. Other perks like I don't know gym memberships, pet
Yeah.
insurance, all these other kind of sprinkling on things, which is really good. A big thing now still is kind of I think a positive leftover from the pandemic is hybrid or work from home.
Yeah.
I know it is becoming less and less prominent. Return to work is a force that is here to stay, unfortunately.
Hmm.
But again, if you are seen as so valuable and can have such an impact, your next employer won't care if you're in the office or on Mars. And so that's part of this process as well.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've helped my clients do a lot more now, which I think is really valuable, and I'm biased, but you can negotiate education and training budgets.
Yes. So
Hey,
important.
here's 3 grand to go to go take this course, to get this certification, to go to this conference and learn all this new stuff.
Yeah.
And the awesome thing about education is that nobody can take it away from you, right? The bonus will dry up, like they could fire you tomorrow, like all these things
Yeah.
could go away, but the knowledge is going to stay forever. And so
Hmm.
if you can talk about that, whether it's tuition reimbursement, whether it's certification reimbursement, that's something that can be an obvious value add to both the employer and the employee. Because like
Hmm.
I'm going to pay you to learn this stuff, and you're going to bring it here, not only do the thing, but then maybe teach it and scale it to all our other people as well.
Yeah. Are you seeing any of that tied to like golden handcuffs or repayment schedules should somebody leave over a period of time? Or are you seeing those be a little bit more flexible than maybe they once were?
I think unfortunately now, because it is an employer's market, it is a bit of those golden handcuffs. Like
Yeah.
if your employer is going to pay for you to go get an MBA, like they're going to want to make sure there's
You're sticking around for a while.
yeah. But I
Yeah.
think um I mean, I would say then if you really want out of that place that paid for that six-figure MBA, then it's your job to go out there and
Yeah.
negotiate another higher salary. So the difference can simply just be paid back to your old employer to say, hey, cool, get me out of this contract. Here's my
Yeah.
separation fee because I've now found something so much better and brighter on the other side.
Yeah, such an amazing point. Again, another element of negotiation as you're walking away from a firm to help them or have them help you with just like you might with relocation benefits, right?
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah. Super helpful. Amazing. Colby, this I think is going to be so incredibly helpful for the entire audience, whether or not you're just coming out of school and looking for your first job, you are a career changer and thinking about moving. Any last insights that you feel like we haven't touched upon that you feel everybody needs to know about?
I just want to reiterate the fact that negotiation starts from go. I think that is the biggest thing. It is your job to own and advocate for yourself in a way that is most ultimately empathetic driven to the decision maker, right? Like it's hard to sell ice to Eskimos, right? But if you understand how that person is actually in a desert and you can help them see that, then you're going to pave your way.
Yeah.
So it's your job, I would say, to think about it as you going into the job interview as a consultant. You're there to solve very specific sets of problems. And you need to ask questions, you need to dig deeper, you need to break the norm of the typical interrogative approach to interviewing to really understand so that you are no longer simply just a lowly, small, insignificant job seeker and they're the big, bad, all powerful boss. But
Mm,
you guys meet in the middle where they're problem havers and you're problem solvers, and you guys get to coexist together.
mm. Yeah. Love that. So good. Thank you. I really, really appreciate this. And I know our audience does too. So, Colby's going to be back. We're going to be talking again. In addition to running his very incredible coaching practice, he is the author of Start Now and 49 Other Things That Can Be Done to Be Employed by Graduation. And I love this book. I love all of the tips that you have in here. They are so incredibly actionable and so easily consumable. It's not stuff that when I was reading through this, I was like, oh, none of this is hard.
Mhm.
It's just we don't do it. And you
Yeah.
have compiled such an incredible list in one place that is giving people the access that they need to be able to take their career by storm. So we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit about the book next time. But this time, again, Colby, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Lindsay. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Be well, everybody.